if you're a Buddhist monk, then people sometimes ask you, why did you become a Buddhist monk? Because it's something rather unusual and different from what most people are doing. Also people ask this question because they think there must be some profound reason why someone leaves behind his normal life and becomes a spiritual seeker. Already 2,500 years ago, at the time of the Buddha, people asked monks this question. So they already asked, why did you become a monk? And today you can hear the answer of one of the great disciples of the Buddha, Venerable Ratapala. He was the disciple of the Buddha foremost in going forth out of faith from home to homelessness. Going forth to homelessness is the term that's used in the suttas for leaving behind one's sort of normal life and one's family ties and becoming a monk or some renunciant recluse. So he was the Venerable Ratapala was the disciple of the Buddha foremost in deciding to ordain out of faith. So at one time the Buddha is wandering with a large group of monks in northern India in the Kuru country and arrives at a town called Tulakotita. And the brahmin householders who live in this area, they hear that the Buddha has arrived in their hometown and they hear the fame of the Buddha as perfectly awakened one. And so they decide to visit him and hear his teachings. The Buddha is instructing, urging and gladdening the people who have come with a Dhamma-Talk. And the brahmin householders are delighted and rejoice in what the Buddha is saying. And after the Dhamma-Talk is finished, they all pay homage to the Buddha and depart. Everyone except one person. After everyone else has left already, a young man is still sitting in front of the Buddha. His name is Ratapala. And he goes to the Buddha and pays homage to the Buddha. And he says, as I understand the teaching of the Blessed One, it's not easy while living as householder to live the holy life utterly perfect and pure as a polished shell. And he tells the Buddha that he wants to become a monk. The Buddha asks him whether he has permission from his parents to become a monk. And Ratapala says, no, I don't have permission. So the Buddha tells him that he has to ask his parents for permission first. So Ratapala's parents are very unhappy that he wants to become a monk because they are the leading clan of the whole area and they are a rich family and Ratapala is the only son. But Ratapala finally gets permission from his parents with difficulty and then he goes again to the Buddha and gets ordained by the Buddha himself. And so about a decade later, then after Venerable Ratapala has realized awakening already and became another one of the Arahants, then he is visiting his parents and at that time he's staying in a park close to his hometown, which belongs to the king of the Kuru country, King Kuravya. So Venerable Ratapala is staying in this park under a tree, and just by coincidence, the king wants to visit the park on that day. And the king is sending a person who is looking after the park to tidy it up. And so this park keeper is tidying up there, And then he sees Venerable Ratapala is staying there, sitting on a tree, and he informs the king about it. And so he tells the king, Your Majesty, Venerable Ratapala is staying in your park. The son of the leading clan in Tulakotita, who was always highly praised by you. And so the king is inspired when he hears that, and he says, in that case, we shall go to pay respects to Master Ratapala. The king is then driving out of the city in full pomp of royalty in his state carriage, accompanied by several other vehicles and an entourage of people to meet Venerable Ratapala. And when the king has arrived at the park, he is walking together with his most eminent ministers to the place where Venerable Ratapala is staying and exchanging friendly greetings with him. And then he offers him an elephant rug, some expensive mat to sit on. But Venerable Ratapala says, no need, great king, sit down yourself, I'm sitting on my own mat. And then the king starts the conversation. And he says, some people become monks because they have experienced 4 kinds of loss. They have experienced loss by aging, loss by sickness, or loss of wealth, or loss of relatives. So, what's loss of aging? Someone has become old, burdened with years, and he thinks, I'm already old now, I won't be able to acquire much wealth anymore, or make a career. What if I would go forth into homelessness and become a monk? And so they ordain because of loss by aging. But Master Ratapala, you are still young, a black-haired young man in the prime of life. You didn't have any loss by aging. So what have you understood or seen or heard that you became a monk? And some other people, they have experienced loss by sickness. That they get afflicted and seriously ill, and then they think, I'm seriously ill now, and I won't be able to acquire much wealth or make a career anymore. What if I would go forth into homelessness and become a monk? And that's called the loss by sickness. But Master Ratapala, you are still healthy and free from illness. So what have you understood or seen or heard that you became a monk? And then some people become monks because of loss of wealth or relatives. And so someone is rich and has many friends and relatives, but then gradually his wealth gets used up, or he loses it, or his relatives or friends pass away or leave him. And then he thinks, before I was rich and I had many friends and relatives, but now don't have them anymore. So it's difficult for me to acquire some wealth again. And what if I would go forth into homelessness and become a monk? And that's called the loss of wealth and relatives. But Master Ratapala, you were from the leading clan of the town and had many friends and relatives. So what have you understood or seen or heard that you became a monk? And then Venerable Ratapala answers, there are these 4 Dhamma summaries that were taught by the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully enlightened. And when I knew, saw and heard these 4 Dhamma summaries, I went forth into homelessness and became a monk. What for? The world is swept away. It does not endure. And when I knew and saw and heard this, I went forth into homelessness and became a monk. The world offers no shelter and is no protector. When I knew and saw and heard this, I went forth into homelessness and became a monk. The world has nothing of its own. One is to pass on and leave everything behind. When I heard and saw and knew this, I went forth into homelessness and became a monk. And the world is insufficient, unsatiable, enslaved by craving. When I knew and saw and heard this, I went forth into homelessness and became a monk. So, the world is swept away, it does not endure. The world offers no shelter and is no protector. The world is nothing of its own. One is to pass on and leave everything behind. And the world is insufficient, insatiable, and enslaved by craving. So these are these 4 Dhamma summaries by Venerable Ratapala. And then the king wants to know further about the meaning that the Venerable Ratapala was talking about. And so the king says, the world is swept away, it does not endure. How should that statement be understood? And Venerable Ratapala answers, what do you think, great king? When you were 20 or 25, were you an expert rider of horses and elephants, an expert archer and swordsman? Did you have strong arms and thighs, and were you a strong warrior? And the king says, yes, when I was 20 and 25, I was a strong warrior like that. Sometimes I wonder whether I had supernormal powers back then. I don't see anyone who could equal me in strength. What do you think, great king? Do you still have strong arms and thighs now? Are you still a strong warrior? No, Master Ratapala. Now I'm old, aged, burdened with years. My years have turned 80 now. Sometimes I want to put my foot in one place, but I put it somewhere else. And then Ratapala says, it was on account of that the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully enlightened, said, the world is swept away, it does not endure. Then the king says, it is amazing, it's wonderful how well this has been stated by the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully enlightened. The world is swept away, it does not endure. It is indeed so. And so then the king asks Venerable Ratapala about the second teaching. And he says, I have large armies in my service who can defend me from any danger, but you said, the world offers no shelter and is no protector. What do you mean by that? And Venerable Ratapala asks the king, do you have any chronic illness? And the king says, yes, sometimes he has some serious pains, and then people are standing around him and wondering whether he will pass away soon. And so Venerable Ratapala says, and can you tell your friends and relatives, come, my dear friends and relatives, all of you here share this painful feeling, so that I may feel less pain? Or do you have to feel that pain yourself alone? And then the king says, I cannot share this pain with other people around me, but I have to feel this pain alone. And then Venerable Ratapala says, it was on account of that the Blessed One, accomplished and fully enlightened, said, the world offers no shelter and is no protector. And the king says, it is wonderful, it's amazing how well that has been stated by the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully enlightened. The world offers no shelter and is no protector. It is indeed so. So then the king asks him about the third teaching, and he says, Master Ratapala, I have lots of gold and wealth stored in my treasuries, but you just said, there's nothing in the world that you can really own. What do you mean by that? And Venerable Ratapala says, what do you think, great king? Now you enjoy yourself with your wealth and the 5 kinds of sense pleasures. But will you be able to enjoy yourself with sense pleasures in the same way in the next life? Or will others take over all your property, where you have to die and pass on according to your own actions, according to your karma? And the king says, I cannot have it as a wish in my next life. Others will take over all this property and I will have to pass on according to my actions. And so Venerable Ratapala says, on account of this, the Blessed One, accomplished and fully enlightened, said, the world has nothing of its own. One has to pass on and leave everything behind. And then the king asks him about the 4th teaching. The world is insufficient, insatiable, enslaved by craving. What do you mean by that? And then Venerable Ratapala says to the king, suppose a messenger would come from the east and he would tell you, Your Majesty, you should know that in the east there's a large country which is rich and prosperous, and with your army you can conquer it. Would you conquer it? And the king says, yes, I will conquer it. And suppose there would be a messenger coming from the north, from the south, or from the west, and he would tell you there's a large, prosperous and rich country in this direction, and with your armies you can conquer it. Would you conquer it? And the king says, yes, I would conquer it. And suppose there would be a messenger coming from across the ocean, and he would say, across the ocean there's a rich country, and prosperous and wealthy, and with your armies you can conquer it. Would you conquer it? Yes, I would conquer it. With regard to this, the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully enlightened, said, the world is insufficient, insatiable, enslaved by craving. And then the king says, it's amazing, it's wonderful how well that has been stated by the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully enlightened. The world is insufficient, insatiable and enslaved by craving. It is indeed so. So these were Venerable Ratapala's teaching to the king about the 4 Dhamma summaries. The reason why Venerable Ratapala wanted to become a monk. And Venerable Ratapala gives the king some examples that point to his direct experience, so that the king can see that they're actually true. So something from his own life that he finds there. And these 4 Dhamma summaries of Venerable Ratapala are teachings that are meant to stir up a sense of Samvega in us, just like in Venerable Ratapala himself, that when he heard them. That's in a way one of the main purposes by the Buddha's teaching, that he wants to encourage us that we experience these 2 qualities, or these emotions of, the first one is Samvega in Pali. It's a sense of urgency, of being stirred up. And the second one is Pasada, a sense of confidence or inspiration or brightness of the mind. And so this emotion of Samvega, a sense of urgency or being stirred up, arises when you see that your life is insecure or beset by troubles or danger, just like expressed in these 4 Dhamma summaries. But then the more you see that, for example, the fragility of your body, of your material support and the instability of your own mind, then that you want to look for something more stable and more secure and more safe, and someone who can show you the way that leads there. And so Sangvega is similar, like if you would be in a house and notice that it is on fire, and someone would show you the fire exits leading to safety, and then you would be obviously keen to get out as quickly as possible. And the other quality, pasada, arises when you see the excellent or amazing qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, or if you see to the great results or benefits that Dhamma practice can lead to, and then you experience a sense of confidence or inspiration, brightness, and that's seeing that they can lead to that which is really secure and safe. And so this quality of pasada is similar, like if someone would show you the way to an amazing treasure, and then if you would sort of see that, then you would feel inspired and joyful that you can actually get to this amazing treasure. So this, I could say, some additional information how these four Dhamma summaries fit together with the larger picture of the teaching of the Buddha, what the purpose of it is, or where it can lead to. So the world is swept away, it does not endure. In one sutta, someone asks the Buddha, the world, why it is called the world? And then the Buddha says, it disintegrates, that's why it's called the world. In Pali, is a wordplay. Loko is the word for world, and the word for decay is, or one of them is luchati, so loko, luchati. And sounds similar. What the Buddha calls the world is a whole experience, in a way, the five khandhas, the six sense spaces, and everything except Nibbana, and that is, say, swept away and does not endure. And so because of that, it also can't give any true safety or refuge. Venerable also says the world is without a protector. The Pali word is anabhisaro. Isaro is a ruler or lord, so there is no higher ruler. Literally, often people hope or believe that there is some higher being who rules over the universe and is in charge, is managing everything, so to speak. And then hoping that this higher being who is in charge of the universe can help you and sort of solve your problems. But there's actually no such being who is in control over the universe. And the Buddha says that there are divine beings, and sometimes they can help you in some way or another, but also only in a very limited way. And they're also subject to the law of causality. And so that's the only way we can move to the cessation of dukkha, or to the liberation, is by the power of our own actions. It's also important to mention that the Buddha says that in the world there's no shelter or refuge or protector in the world, but there is a refuge which leads out of the world. So the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, in a sense, they gradually lead further and further out of the world, to things which are more and more stable and secure, up to the ultimate stableness or security. So it's also important to say, because it can sound a little bit negative in the sense that the world is without shelter or protector. But yeah, it's a sense to stir us up to go into the direction of what is really safe and secure. Yeah, so these were the 4 Dhamma summaries of Venerable Ratapala, the reasons why he decided to become a monk. And you can read the whole story in the middle-length discourses of the Buddha. It's in this Majjhima Nikaya 82. So, Un Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya middle-length discourses. And yeah, it's also one of the favorite suttas of my father. He likes to read it regularly. Venerable Ratapala only heard one discourse by the Buddha, and he already wanted to ordain, and so because he was so deeply stirred by those teachings. But yeah, even if you don't become a monk or a nun, then at least that you can sometimes reflect what would be beneficial to do with your life. If this is the case, if these 4 Dhamma summaries are true, then what do you want to use your time for, or what do you want to use your life for, if the world is swept away and does not endure? Or what do you want to use your time for if the world offers no shelter and there's no protector? And what do you want to use your time for if the world has nothing of its own and you have to leave everything behind? And if the world is insufficient, insatiable, and enslaved by craving? And so, at the end of the conversation with the king, then Venerable Ratapala speaks some verses to summarize his teaching. I see rich people in the world who don't give anything out of delusion. Greedy, they stash away their wealth and want even more sense pleasures. A king who has conquered the earth and rules over the land up to the ocean is still unsatisfied with the near shore and wants the land across the ocean as well. Not only kings, other people too meet death with craving unabated. With plans still incomplete, they leave the corpse behind. Desires remain insatiable in the world. His relatives lament and rend their hair. They cry, "Alas, our loved one is dead." They carry away the body wrapped in cloth, to place it on the pyre and burn it there. Wrapped in one piece of cloth, he leaves his wealth behind. Prodded with stakes, he burns upon the pyre. And as he dies, no relatives or friends can give him shelter. Heirs take his wealth, but this being passes on according to his actions. And as he dies, nothing can follow him, not child, nor wife, nor wealth, nor royal estate. Long life is not gained by wealth, nor can prosperity banish old age. Short is his life, as all the sages say, unstable and subject to decay. The rich and poor alike will feel the touch of death. The fool and sage will feel it too. But while the fool lies struck by his foolishness, no sage will ever tremble at the touch of death. Therefore is wisdom better than any wealth, by which one can reach perfection. For people do evil deeds through delusion, while failing to reach the goal from life to life. As one goes to the womb and to the next life, continuing the round of rebirth, Another one of little wisdom, trusting him, goes also to the womb and to the next life. Just like a robber caught in burglary is oppressed by his evil actions, so too, later in the next life, people are oppressed by their evil actions. Sense pleasures diverse, sweets delightful, disturb the mind in countless ways. Because I saw the disadvantages of sensuality, I went forth into homelessness, O king. Like fruits fall from a tree, so people too, both young and old, fall when the body breaks. Having seen this too, I went forth into homelessness. Better it is to be a monk, O king.